Hi, and thanks for joining us on this week's episode of the Retirement Readiness Podcast. As always, we have Tim Regan, the founder at Prairie View, with us,
Hey, Katie.
and Katie Umland, the head of marketing. Today, we're going to start by talking about downsizing and simplifying in retirement, and what does that look like, and what does that mean?
Yeah, it's funny. There's a lot of times when clients will talk about, boy, when we get rid of the kids, it'll be really nice because we can get to a smaller house where we can downsize. And there are quite a few clients that come in and even say, man, that's going to be a big kind of windfall when we retire because we won't need the big house and the 2 stories and all that kind of stuff. So it comes up quite often in our conversations.
I feel like there can be a lot of different viewpoints on that. Like I remember when Mom was considering downsizing after Dad passed away, she was considering a townhouse. It took her a long time to figure out what does that look like and what do I want from that. And I remember there's pros of a townhouse. You don't have to do lawn maintenance, but then it's also a con. You don't have to do lawn maintenance. So it's kind of like you don't want to go from 0 or 100 to 0.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's some balance of finding like, what do you want? And it's also kind of hard too. Well, what can I do today versus what can I do in 3 to 5 years? You kind of have to think.
Well, and then you have the whole other side of it where I think it's kind of like Sarah, my wife, that she's like, I like the kids grew up here, right? How am I going to leave where the kids grew up?
Exactly.
And then you have these pictures of grandkids coming and swimming in the swimming pool.
The same pool.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And so it's a very personal conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times as we start to have it, we start having the conversation around what does that lifestyle look like and what kind of lifestyle do you want to have? Similar to what you're talking about, how do I go from 100% of the yard work to no yard work and all that kind of stuff. And so really a lot of times it starts to become a conversation around what do I want my life to look like? And some of that even goes to things like, I liked having the house and I like having the grandkids come over, but none of my kids live here, and so really does it make sense for me to have a condo here or a townhouse, something smaller, and really have the ability to travel and see the kids and grandkids.
So a conversation Alex and I have maybe every 2 months, more so in the winter, is why do we live in Illinois?
Yes, 100%.
And he's always trying to throw scenarios at me to say, okay, if my job said I could relocate for 6 months, then would you move to Mexico with me? Or, and I'm always like, no, my mom lives here. I have to stay close to my mom. But it's the same thing with kids. He said, okay, when we retire, then would you move? I'm like, well, I want our kids to come home.
Yep.
I don't want, now we moved and they feel like, where do we go?
Yeah. No, 100%.
And we're 30 and we're
thinking about
that. So, and it's really complicated.
Well, and a lot of times people think, when they think about moving to a different house in retirement, they think downsize. But what we find a lot of times, and part of what they're thinking is that they're going to save money. They're going to sell the bigger house for more money than they spend on the next one. And a lot of times that's just simply not the case, because what we find is the house might be slightly smaller in a footprint, but some of the things that you want are more expensive. Things like, I want the really big family room, great room, dining room area that's all open, so that when the kids do come back with the grandkids, we can all have a place to be. Some of our clients that don't have kids still want that because they want to host their friends over and those types of things. And so it really kind of becomes a home that's built around entertaining. And those things sometimes aren't really cheaper. Sometimes people are finding themselves actually spending more in retirement.
Or what I'm thinking is like, okay, this potentially is our last refrigerator. Let's get the nicest that's going to last us the longest. Or, okay, let's get an all brick ranch that has less maintenance.
Absolutely.
Or,
and it's funny you say that. I remember we've worked with a couple of clients that were looking to go to that ranch home. They didn't want a townhouse, they wanted a home. And as they went to do that, I was looking at the home that they were purchasing, and it was probably, I don't know, we don't live in a very large house, but it's a nice size home. And it was probably half of the square footage as our home, but the cost was 80% of our home. So it was not something that was all of a sudden much cheaper, because those homes are in high demand as well. So,
and then I feel like another piece is not only what do you want that house to look like, what do you want your lifestyle, but is it a retirement community or is it the town I'm currently in? Like that's another added piece that you don't have when you're younger.
For sure. And that's where it kind of goes to what is the lifestyle that I'm looking to lead? Because there are a lot of people that love that retirement community. And those are really nice where you've got the golf course in the community and a pool and clubhouse and, all of those outings that you can go and you can have this kind of built-in community. We were just talking with some clients yesterday who have a place down in Florida that they go to every year, and there it's a campground. They have a camper in the campground that's permanently there, and they were telling us how when we're here, we do far more activities and far more physical things even than when we're back home because they've got a pickleball.
And your friends that are 2 doors down saying, let's go.
Let's go. That's right. They're like, we ride bikes on Wednesdays, we golf on Tuesday. Like they have their whole schedule, and that's part of that lifestyle. What do I want that to look like, and how social do I want it to be?
Well, just a few episodes ago, we talked to Kevin McGee from Smith Crossing, and he was saying, it's funny how when you think about retirement communities or senior living, it feels like, oh, but that's not what it is anymore.
Yeah.
It can be so different.
100%.
And really be a community if that's what you're looking to do.
Yeah, and what we find a lot of times is. Like we were talking about, where are the kids and that kind of stuff. Today, Sarah and I are experiencing that. It seems like kids are going to be not here, probably not super far away, but probably not here. It seems like they're all kind of getting comfortable where they're going to school and kind of settling there a little bit. And so now all of a sudden, the home, we're lucky if that's the case. We're kind of centrally located still, so we could stay in our house. But part of it is, even if the kids move away, this is where my friends are. This is where church is. This is, so. And
it's still your kids' home base.
It is.
If you moved somewhere else now, like I was just saying, Alex and I were just talking about this the other night. If we move somewhere else, now not only are our kids everywhere, and we're somewhere else. And this isn't their home that they grew up in. So now it's like, are they likely to come to your new house? I don't know.
Frequently?
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, but then on the flip side, the other thing that's nice about that is it gives you the opportunity to really design the home that you live in for your lifestyle then. So, for example, we're going through that phase of life where kids are kind of moving out, and pretty soon, I think, not pretty soon, a decade from now, we'll be empty nesters once Grace is through school. But we're seeing, like Lily in Milwaukee, when they come in, they need a place to stay, and they want a place that is going to be comfortable and accommodating and kind of their own place. And so now we're like, well, we kind of can't downsize. We like it when they come in and they stay, but we really probably need to do some remodeling a little bit so that it's more conducive to them being comfortable to come and stay the night or the weekend or whatever. And so when we talk about, a lot of times people, when they're planning on retirement, they think about, I'm going to downsize, I'm going to simplify, I'm going to make things way easier. But really, they start finding that becomes a much more complicated decision than what they.
It feels like there's stages. Like you said, you're in the stage where they're just starting to leave, but then in 10 years, it's going to look so different again. Yeah. So it's kind of like one stage at a time, and trying to figure out what does that look like.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think you mentioned Mom. She's kind of got the perfect setup because they've got that separate part of the house where. When Kelly comes in town, they can stay and they kind of feel like they have their own wing. But yet she doesn't have to worry about accommodating all the kids because the rest of us are all within
close enough.
A real quick drive distance. And so all of those things come into play. But the biggest thing that we see really kind of goes back to your comment around townhome versus not. The thought that I have, right now, since the kids we're into all their sports and all that kind of stuff. I got away from doing some of my own yard work. We've got somebody that comes and mows the grass and that stuff. But in my mind, retirement always meant my ability to go out and do that work. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy keeping the yard up. And so for us, I don't know that a townhouse really would ever scratch that itch, right? Because I enjoy doing that. And so I think it really comes back to what do you enjoy
and what does a simpler life look like? Does simpler mean for you, does that mean, okay, I have somebody coming to do the yard work, or does simpler mean I have somebody coming to cook meals so that I can do the other things that I like to do? Like simpler doesn't mean
for sure
you don't do any housework, or, it doesn't have to mean that. It's what you want
what you want it to look
that
like.
to look like.
Well, and along those lines too, we have had a number of clients where kids move to different places, and so we have one that they had kids that moved out to Iowa, and they wanted to be able to go out and see them and spend time with them and that stuff. And they had actually thought about buying a home in Iowa. And really what we decided for them was it made more sense to rent a furnished apartment and to try it for a year.
Right.
And so...
How much are we actually down there?
Exactly.
How much are we saving? Are we...
Yeah, and is having a place that is, a mile and a half or 2 miles away, is that good? Do we need to be 5 miles away? Do we see each other too much? Or would it be better if maybe we invested and put an addition on their home and had related living?
Or should we spend money and have a house here so they can come here? Which way does it?
That's
way
right.
Does it go?
And so there's a lot of, as you start going down that path, there are lots of ways that we can solve for those problems. The real question starts to become, what do I want to do, and what do I want my lifestyle to look like? And we have the same questions. It's no different than when you're younger and you're thinking about, where do I live? Your home and where you live is a lifestyle choice. It's not always a financial choice. If you wanted a financial choice, we can find a really crummy apartment in a really bad neighborhood, and you
save
can
you
save
all
a
kinds
whole
of
kinds of
money.
money. That's right. But you might not want your kids going to that school, or that kind of stuff. And so it's the same thing as we start going into retirement. Our advice is, let's start with some of the big things. Let's start with what you want to do. Do you like to ride your bike? Do you like to go for walks? Do you like to go canoeing, or those types of... Well, if you do, then let's find a community that those things are part of that community, that you've got a biking trail that is nearby, or they have maybe a walking club that is part of your community, or you live near a river that you can go canoeing, or whatever you want to do.
Or daily outings to the mall, whatever you...
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Whatever, it's however, I think that with the way that Amazon is, the mall comes to you now, so you don't even have to do that.
Honestly.
Right? So it's kind of starting with those big things. It's starting with, what are the things that I see myself wanting to do? Do I enjoy woodworking and I want to have a wood shop? And if I do I want it in my garage? What do I want? Along those lines, kind of a funny story. We had a client of ours who was in his late 80s, and his kids talked him into moving into a duplex that was in a retirement community. And the people that ran the retirement community, managed it, called them and said that they had to come and talk to Dad because he was making too much noise. And
wild parties.
Yeah, he's like in his 80s. Are you kidding me? What are you talking about? And so then when they went, they found that Dad had put his wood shop in his second bedroom.
Oh.
And so he had a table saw in there. Yeah. And had fashioned a dust collecting mechanism and stuff.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. And so probably should have done a little more talking and planning around those. And,
will this actually work?
Yeah, exactly. And so it's thinking through, what do I see myself spending my time doing? Also thinking about, like we talked about, where's my family, where's my church, those types of things. And then the second question always comes up: should we think about having a second home? Mm-hmm. I know we've had previous episodes where we've talked about second homes before, and that comes into the conversation. For example, if we talk about kids and second homes and all that stuff, I may want to do yard work, and I may want to have a wood shop and those types of things. But it might make more sense for me to have a place that I can just turn the key and go, and I don't have to worry about anything. Mm-hmm. And then I can travel, whether it's I want to have a second home, or it's I want to just do a lot of traveling, or I want to see the kids. All of those things are how we start to make those decisions.
Even at our age, Alex and I are trying to decide. So we have a second lake house. It's a lot of maintenance currently. The yard work is a lot of maintenance. So we're in this spot of, okay, should we spend a little money and make the landscaping way less maintenance? Because currently we feel like, okay, we're not going because when we go, we have to
all the work,
do all this work. Yep. So we're in this spot of, okay, do we spend a little bit of money to make this much more enjoyable when we go, or what does that kind of look like? So I feel like at all stages of your life, you're kind of evaluating, what do I want my life to look like? And now and in the future.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things that we find with our clients is that sometimes they get too focused on this is the last move I'm going to make. And so then when they're in their, say, mid 60s and still have a lot of life left and a lot of energy and a lot of activity, they're already thinking about maybe I should move into like, and our advice would be focus on what you want to do and where you see yourself for the next decade or so. And then let's
Make another
decisions from there.
choice.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So
Awesome. Is there anything else that I missed that you would like to talk about?
I don't think so. I think we covered it all.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Retirement Readiness Podcast. We hope you found some of this valuable. If you did, please like and subscribe our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. Until next time, be well.